Good evening and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show this Sunday evening. It's the 19th of September 2021 and it's good morning in the evening. We're glad to have you here with us on the show this evening. As is regular practice on the Good Morning Education Show, we have discussions around an analysis around education, and then our weekend special is just that time when we let down our hair and take in some um, mix things up, switch things up a bit, and have the show in a more relaxed atmosphere. Every The show holds from Monday to Fridays at 8 a.m., on Saturdays at 9 a.m., and on Sundays at 5 p.m., which is why you are joining us at this time. Apologies for starting late today. We have a very interesting topic today, and on that note, well, am I welcoming or should he be welcoming me? I think he should be welcoming me. Uh, our host on the show, our chief host on the show, Mr. Timi Itaya. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're streaming from Lagos, Nigeria to West Africa to Africa and the entire world. And of course, we know it's always a great day on the show. And apologies, like being mentioned, for starting a bit late. We will be having a fast track edition today due to situations and scenarios that we're having right now. But still, we will not miss today's edition for anything, especially based on the conversation. And the topic that we'll be looking at is dangerous game or dangerous games. Finn, I believe you could introduce us to the conversation and then we'll take one or two questions and talk around it and then we'll call it a day. Thank you.
Yeah, when we were introducing this topic yesterday, I was talking about it having a feel like it should have a soundtrack, and sending out is it a warning or um, alerting people to the fact that there are certain practices, there are certain decisions or actions and inactions that we could be involved in now that are actually dangerous games. They are um, they are putting at risk the future and what the future would or should hold at this point, but we just feel like, oh well, it's really not hurting anybody now. It's really not hurting anything now, and so it's we don't really see them as being dangerous. But in the on the long run, we take after we take stock of what is being done or not done now. For example, I'll give one example. This issue of this is a general example. This issue of people in the IDP camps who were not able to register the birth of their children for a while, and for to the average mind, it looks like, because what's the big deal? You had your baby, you had your baby. So if you're not able to register the birth of your child, well, nobody's going to argue with you. But going down the line, we find that if the children are not registered properly and have their births captured and national database, it is a big dangerous game for them in the future. And this is what we'll be talking about. This is what our discussion this evening will be centered around. What are we doing now that is dangerous for the future? And so I'll ask Mr. Itayo, what one example of a dangerous game do you have? Can you point to at the moment?
Okay. I think that one of the things that you could consider dangerous is, should I call it lack or the inability to boast of accurate data. I think that in itself possesses something dangerous. It's very important that we need to take data seriously, especially in this part of the world, and our ability to interpret and plan properly. All the strategic planning that takes place will probably be more meaningful if we have data available to us. And there are times that you hear about policies, you hear about practices, you hear about a lot of things that are being championed, and of course, without accurate data, I think that sometimes we might just end up wasting resources that are scarce, or sometimes we might not be hitting the nail on the head as it's supposed to be. So some issues keep evolving or revolving because we do not have data. That's a dangerous game where we do not begin to pay attention to data. Hello?
Okay, I can hear you now. Okay, data, yes, in different aspects. This is one huge problem we have as a nation with data. It affects our planning. It affects our proper planning, proper allocation, uh, putting the right things, allotting the right things to the right places. And in a way, I would say that it's in favor of misappropriation. So yeah, one of the things we need to do is proper data capture, know proper registration of birth, proper registration of students transition from class to class, so that we know the number of so that we know our we have the gender properly represented. We know, oh, these are the number of boys or the number of girls in this environment and in this locality. And yeah, so that's what I learned of one recently where the school unilaterally made the decision not to register their students for, was it NECO or WASI? I can't remember which one of these exams. Reason being that according to the stipulations for that exam, they needed to have a particular number of students for them to be able to register for that exam. And since the school did not have that number, they did not inform the parents. They just took the unilateral decision not to register the students for that particular exam. How dangerous is that? The exam was, I think, a week away or so before parents got to know that, in fact, they had started. I think they had started practicals when one of the parents just got to know that that exam had started. And then she tried to find out from the school, and then they gave her the reason. How dangerous can this kind of practice be for the children involved?
I think, yeah, it's quite dangerous. There will be justification for that move, probably because there are two different exams that people write within the country for the terminal classes. But schools need to understand that no matter how unilateral they can be, they are offering a service. And if it's promised or if it's assumed that this is a natural thing, I think certain decisions at that critical level should not be just an administrative function of management. Sometimes the comfort some people have is that if they write, if they sit for NECO, they sit for WAEC at that time, it gives them the possibility of, what, if one didn't turn out so well, the other will, but if you're able to take certain steps, and sometimes probably because they know that there might be pressure, so the move of the school might come in like a gesture that is suspected and all that. But I think that it's something that everybody needs to be sincere about. There has to be more transparency when it comes to running a school, because people have paid for service. And whether you like it or not, you must understand that if your stakeholders feel they are not carried along, that in itself is a disservice. And then, of course, things can happen at the end of the day that you might not like. And it's something that we need to talk about. That there's certain things that shouldn't be secret or shouldn't be done in secrecy, especially within educational institutions. I remember some weeks ago, a senior colleague of mine was to another country, and partly the documentation required for, I think maybe something they're doing in that particular country, was made for them to come back for a transcript and something else. And then they found out that, number one, even though the thing was time bound, when they went to the university to ask for transcript, the first thing was like, they're not giving transcript. And okay, they wanted to see somebody in charge, like, are you on appointment? And these are administrative functions that someone should be able to even facilitate without physically being in the place. And some people don't mind even if it requires that you pay. In some situations, we've heard that somebody has to sign, and the person probably comes in once in 2 months or once in 6 weeks. So if much, you are you're at a disadvantage. And that's why we need to wake up as a nation. We need to wake up. The entire system is practicing dangerous practice when we turn the nerve of the administration or the institution into a place of mediocrity. Lack of excellence in the components that drive every institution is actually a dangerous game. And that's the real thing. We focus too much on the positional authorities, the positional heads, people who actually sit on portfolios, but there's a lot of ticking time bomb on the things they sit on. We've had certain situations that when we share conversations, I recall one of the times I was out of the country, I was talking to some people about some challenges that people face. Everybody shares their challenges, and you forget that even some of your own realities should not be, you should not even say it out there, because it doesn't, is not a reality that should be shared out there. Not, you can't find your result. I don't know whether you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, you're in your house, and it's like you're saying you can't find your door. You understand what I'm trying to say? We're not saying that you
Yeah.
scored low. We're not saying that you failed the exam. You're not saying that you doubt the integrity of the scores. You can't find your result. In the first place, the natural thing you ask someone who is looking for something is, where did you keep your result? First say, no, I wasn't even given the result. I didn't have a result. That's why I'm using the nomenclature. I can't find my result. Then you didn't misplace your result. It's the person that the result is originating from that you need to talk to. But nobody owns and nobody takes ownership. Nobody. These are things. They are dangerous practices. They are dangerous practices, and the ripple effect is that when people are frustrated through a system, they try their possible best not to have anything to do with that system if they can. So you find out that sometimes there are people who don't further their studies within Nigeria, not because they don't like academics or not because they don't believe in career development, but sometimes when you think of the hassles go through, you might not be eager to jump on the next academic program in the same
Absolutely.
institution or
Yeah.
in the same environment. Why? Because you've
The
heard
same.
stories, and those stories, they are not palatable. Sometimes, if you are working and you're going to school, of course, the peculiarities will be a lot more different. So you can't afford to be at the mercies of some people who don't even understand what it means for someone to be working and be studying. It's enough a sacrifice. But you know what they do? they punish you for that reality in some cases. So when you look at the back end officers, you look at the back end structure of administration, look at the back end activities of academic institution, and I'm not talking about higher institution only. I'm talking about higher institutions. Sometimes trickles down even to our basic secondary and primary schools. It's like some people are focused so much on the teaching and the result and exam that they don't realize that the moment you open a school, that institution is actually meant to be a perpetual institution, all things being equal, right? And so there are certain things that, for example, you don't know, and you might not know, people would need their academic records for different reasons. It's like people don't even ask themselves, what do people need at the exit dimension of our services? People need us after they leave us. Obviously, yes. What are the reasons they need us for? Oh, for example, we've had political election year. We've heard of result saga. Why is there a result saga? You find out that it's easier for you to show that you have proof of being a part of a particular academic institution that was outside the country. But if it's in Nigeria, it's possible that it will take a lot of while to find your result even if you attended. Sometimes you pray that even the results that you have, if you want to revalidate or you want to get something, just pray that they don't tell you something else that actually, you know, I think the results we gave that time is not yours. Can you imagine? Imagine you finish with a 2-1 or a first class, and then when you're trying to get your transcript for a special program, they now send a third class. Veracity and validity of the result
Mhm.
is an issue. I hope I'm not wrong.
No, 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 no. Please go on.
Hello, Finya, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Uh, okay. I'm not sure if this is from my end, but I could hear you. Can you hear me now?
My device is messing up right now.
Oh, okay. So, I'm really not sure if the issue is from my end or not. But hopefully, hopefully I can be heard. And some of the realities that Mr. Itai was painting are they are painful, but they are our realities. We find that many students have fallen victim of this thing of, oh, if the class of results even changes at the point of testimonial or at the point of transcript, if it's the class of result that changes, it's a good thing. If it's not that, they're telling you we can't even find if there was a flood or rats invaded the room and all the results are gone and destroyed, and we don't realize that these games that we're playing are telling on the lives of some people. Somebody's life depends literally on that game that is being played. And sometimes schools start from early on, from very early on, maybe from as early as the kindergarten, the preschool, and they start playing some of those games, and we just feel, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is in preschool or is in nursery. It's not so much of a big deal. What does he want to do with the results from this class anyway? Sometimes we don't even get the admission date right. The child is put in school and the admission date is not got right. It's not gotten right, and people are they're beginning to they start to guess. Was it the day this happened? Oh no, it must have been 2 days before or 2 days after. No, I remember that the day his mom brought him, this and this happened. Why can we not get our facts right and get things put in proper order so that we're not playing games with the lives of of the individuals, and put as individuals, that we're not playing games with the lives of the individuals. And one big game that we play that irks me a lot, quite a number of schools are guilty of this, is misspelling the name of the students. When you're issuing a certificate that this person graduated from this institution and the name you put on the certificate is wrong. But that for me is a dangerous game, because you get to some climbs. I'm a Yoruba person, so I can see maybe a name like Ade, and maybe between the Ade and the Ola there is a P. I can guess that, oh, maybe it was supposed to be a B. It was supposed to be an Adebola. But you're taking that out of the confines of a location where they're not used to that kind of name, and then you're presenting a different identification from the one that is on your certificate, and becomes a long drawn out issue. The person that made that mistake probably cannot even remember that they did that. And sometimes it's just about being careful to look through, or some even say, and no, I can't start again. See, it's the same thing, Jerry. Sign goes that they go and say an affidavit. But we don't realize that when we play games like this, it's we're putting somebody else's life, either we're putting their lives through, we're putting them through a much longer route or a more painful route. Or sometimes people lose opportunities because of things like this. So, what other game are we playing that we really should not be playing? Let's look at the aspect of parents now. What games do parents play that are very dangerous?
I think that dangerous games. I think one critical one is parents outsourcing parenting to schools. It's very critical that people realize that it's a dangerous game. We're not saying that schools are not competent, but we need to understand that the way we say job description, right? As much as you expect people to go the extra mile, there are certain things that put boundaries even on extra mile. Because with extra mile, you need to also understand that freedom must come, resource must follow. So when you expect schools, for example, to do what you would have done as a parent, while they can stand in for you in certain realities, you must understand that they don't have the resources that would follow. They don't have the permission to go all the way, and they don't have there are some things that don't follow. As a child or as the caregiver, you must realize that you're not always with the child. So some things have to be reinforced, and it has to be by parents, right? So it's except you're expecting magic to happen, you know care for a child is not something that you leave out just for a school. Like support, psychosocial support for a child is not something that should be left for the school. There's an element of pastoral care, an element of intervention, there's an element of curriculum and model of learning, but there's something called parenting. Parenting involves nurture, involves grooming, and we must realize that these things are not things that we should joke with for any reason. We should not. It's a dangerous game, because at the end of the day, it's like you want to tame a rabbit or you want to tame a dog. You want to realize that the children are living beings, and after school there's life. With school there's life. Beyond school there's life. That's a critical thing that parents need to realize, and schools must also help to articulate that. Not because of you're not competent in your enrollment strategy, you just promise a lot of things, and then you now start trying to demarcate the blurry lines. No, that's one. Number two, and I really want us to say this, is one major dangerous game we are playing is that we are not predicting the results we want to have as an education system. Every education system is patterned after something. and its prediction and promise. You need to realize that if you go to a herbalist's house and you are going there to study as a child, the herbalist way of doing things, there is an outcome we expect. You should become an herbalist. If you go into a farmer's house and you have been nurtured and trained by a farmer, you live in the farmhouse, you live in the farmyard, you live on the ranch, there's an expected outcome. What's the outcome? That you have knowledge of farming, you probably have competence in the space of agriculture. It's the same way across board. You must realize that these things actually affect a lot of us. We must be able to say, what does our education promise? What does our education hold? The children going to school every day, regardless of the school fees they pay, regardless of the time they spend in school, regardless of all these things, it's like we still don't have a promise. A promiseless education, a promiseless system of education and learning is a system of education that is already a crime. It's criminal to run education and you cannot provide what will happen. And a lot of us are seeing this up. It's a dangerous game. We're not raising children to be able to have a voice in the world. We are raising children just to be available for the things of the world. That is in itself making us slaves. All that is left is the trade. And slave trade is a combination of trading of slaves. But when we leave our people empowered and positioned through the kind of education system that we pursue, then we will now begin to see that we will not be subject to trade, not to talk of calling ourselves slaves. This is very important. While yes, there might not be some infrastructural facility in a country based on governance, based on corruption, and all of these things, if the education system is right, and in terms of when I say right, education system meets industry, the content there prepares people for industry, or they prepare themselves for the future. Guess what? It will not totally be a disadvantage in living in Nigeria, living in the country that we live in. But you see, when the education system is not even equipping you, the baseline, you don't have any form of equipping and empowerment. And then you don't have an enabling system in the infrastructure and the governance and social space. It becomes double jeopardy, right? And these are things that we want to eliminate. These are things that we want to ensure we don't want to get to be victims of, you know. And I believe that through the conversation of today, we're setting the ball in motion, we're sowing a seed that makes us realize that, look, it's important for us to be able to articulate these things. It's important for us to be able to articulate these things for the purpose, you know, of ensuring that we don't want to, because what's the end of any dangerous game? you know the end of any dangerous game is that you might end up being sucked up by the risk, because to play dangerous game is to take risk, but not just to take risk, but sometimes unreasonable risk. We call it dangerous because there is danger, and the outcome most times are not necessarily desired or desirable. you know so those are the things I feel um that we need to look at.
Thank you for that. That is, I hope it's properly interpreted for parents, not just saying it as, oh, we're putting in our best, we just want the best for these kids, but that they're able to see that, and they're able to understand that, look, you cannot leave parenting to the school, you cannot leave parenting to the institution. It has to be something that you do as a person. You have to be actively involved in it. There's a reason we have parenting partners. They are partners. School are partners in parenting. Caregivers are partners in parenting. Religious organizations are partners in parenting. They are not the core parenting figure. And we need to understand that, and understand that, look, these people partner with us to have a better holistic approach and effect to our standard, to our parenting, and to our outcomes. So yes, we have seen the role of institutions, we have seen the role of individuals in some cases, we have some of the roles of parents in playing games that right now we're looking at it, I would just feel like, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing, it's not a big deal. But on the long run, we find that these are real, real dangerous games that can come around to bite us in the behind, and we wish that we had just put in the extra effort to do it right the first time around. We're really desirous that that is not the reality of those watching, joining us right now, and those who will watch the replay. And at this point, we would like to round off the show this evening, and we would leave you with our parting shots that if the game is dangerous, please do not play. If it looks like it will be dangerous, please desist from playing it, not only for the now, but also for the future. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Rotimi Eitaya. Thank you, Finifolu Falojo, for being here, for making the discussion this evening. And we'll implore you to join us again tomorrow, 8 a.m. tomorrow. We are back on the show, and we have a better, bigger package for you tomorrow morning. But we will not leave you this evening without sending you off on a great evening this time. I feel like we should edit the greeting for Sundays, but in some parts of the world it is morning. So yes, we keep and adopt our morning and stay with that. So let's sign off this evening with our in our usual manner.
All right,
Yeah,
got
let's
to
go.
go. It's always a
It's
great morning,
always
afternoon, and
great
evening. It's
morning
always a great day on the Good Morning
on Good Morning
Education.
Education. So have a great
Have a great
evening,
one.
everyone. Bye.